Hello, my lovely. How are you today? We are into the first full week of the new year, 2022. And as you can see, once again, if you are watching on YouTube, I should say, I am recording this episode in the way that works best for me. If you listened to last week's episode, you will have heard me talking about that. This week, I am doing something else, which is I am recording this video for YouTube as well. So hi, if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening on the podcast, I will pop a link in the comments for you to be able to join my YouTube channel. It is something new for this year. It is a new way of sharing my message and sharing being in business. And I am really excited to get started. This does feel strange though, because usually I am, as you will know if you listened last week, camped out on the lounge floor for best audio sound. That doesn't work so well for video. So we're going with the kitchen today, which is, as those who listened to last week's podcast will know, the least sound-friendly room in the house, but it happens to be where my desk is right now. We will see how we can evolve this for next week. So, first of all, let's delve into a little intro to me, because I'm aware it's a new year. I'm aware I have new followers, and obviously this is completely new for YouTube. So, quick introduction to me. My name is Lou. I am a former lawyer who left the law, I think 7 years ago, and I'm quite pleased that I can't remember exactly when, because it means that I have moved forward into a different phase of my life now. And immediately out of the law, I set up my own business. That business I closed after a couple of years because I burnt out. And that was actually burnout number 3 for me, twice as a lawyer and then a third time in that business. And it has been those experiences which have led to me sharing the message that I am now sharing through being in business. And the reason that I burnt out in that first business was because I took what I thought I knew about success, about running a business, from having belonged to somebody else's business. And let's face it, the legal world is probably one of the most archaic business types out there, or at least it was back then. And I took what I thought I knew and what I'd heard about entrepreneurship. And there's that quote, isn't there? An entrepreneur is somebody that works 80 hours a week for themselves in order to avoid working 40 hours a week for somebody else. And my goodness, did I take that on board? And I was so invested in the doing of that business that I actually lost a connection with my husband, with what was going on in the real world, because I either was collecting the children from nursery, doing things with them at the weekend, or at home at my craft table working solidly. And it, first of all, yes, on paper that business was a success, but it didn't make the money that I had anticipated because I wasn't giving myself time to actually review. I was just doing, and it resulted in burnout. And it took me a long time to see that burnout. And so when I came to start a business again, which was my virtual assistant business, which is Serenday Limited, which is now evolving into coaching and mentoring, hence this podcast and YouTube video and all of my other offerings, I wanted to do things differently, and I have done things differently. And that is what everything that I now do and share has grown from. And at the root of that is finding a balance between our doing and our masculine energy on the one hand, and our being and our feminine energy on the other, and allowing those two to exist in harmony. That is the crux of what being in business, the brand, is about. And this is something that I have learned myself since that third burnout and put into practice in my current business. And actually, that ethos is the reason why I have chosen to transition from virtual assistant to coach. Because one, going into business as a virtual assistant was something that I did because I wanted to make a difference to my clients in terms of releasing time for them to use in a more holistic way, which didn't happen because now I understand that we outsource in order to expand our capacity. And when I get to a point in this business where I am able to outsource, which I anticipate being this year, that's exactly what I will be doing. But I didn't realize that when I started this business. But what was at the crux of that was a desire from my own experience, knowledge, and understanding to enable and empower female entrepreneurs to take control over their own time and to actually create the freedom in their businesses that they left the rat race for. And that's the key bit. We left the rat race for a reason. And then what we did, and I totally include myself in this, is we applied what we thought we knew from our previous existences to our businesses. And for the women who this will be resonating with, including myself, we ended up kind of creating businesses that were the image in terms of lack of sustainability for us of those that we left. And that freedom that we thought we would achieve feels like a long forgotten dream. I want you to know that it's not, that you can reconnect with yourself, and that my being in business method can help you to get there. And what's crucial is that I call it a method, but actually it isn't a one size fits all solution. It is getting to know you, either through listening to these podcasts, getting value from my free content, or from working with me one-to-one. It is connecting you with the magic of who you are, with your own truth, so that you can show up authentically in your business for yourself, for your clients, for your family, and those that you love and care for, and not feel torn time-wise all the time. There are ways that you can release time, taking small steps, even today. And that's what this episode of Being in Business is really about. So let's dive in. You heard me in that introduction talk about balancing the doing, the practical side, the structure, the planning of our business with the being, the flow, the intuitive decision making, and the more feminine energy, and combining that feminine energy with the masculine energy. And that is what I want to share with you today. And going forward, I will be, wherever I can in the content that I create, drawing a distinction between the doing side of things and the being side of things, so that you can begin to see how the two can work in harmony together. And I think it's really important here to start by saying that for me, harmony is what balance is. I believe that we can create balance, but I don't believe in balance in terms of balancing the scales, having everything on an equal playing field, because even with the scales, let alone when we move our definition towards harmony, the scales do this, right? Our businesses, our lives, we are ever evolving, ever moving. And therefore, the way that we show up, our needs, what our business means to us, how we can contribute to it and the people that we're here to serve changes. And that's okay. So, our to-do lists. Do you know what I mean when I say there was a time when I had a to-do list that was pages and pages long, and actually this applied both in the law and in probably both businesses at times, certainly in the early days of this one, and definitely in Tiny and Toad, my handmade business. That to-do list is so long that you're adding stuff to the top and forgetting about what's at the bottom. I can remember in my early days as a lawyer, being terrified that something at the bottom of that list was going to get me sued, that I had forgotten something really important. I'm pleased to say that never did I find, when I got to the bottom of the pile of posts or to the bottom of the to-do list, that I had forgotten anything. But there was always that fear there. And what can result is that the fear that we might have forgotten something becomes so bad that it's actually getting in our way of doing and being in our businesses, because it's occupying part of our mind that could, over here, that could more valuably be employed actually being and doing in our business in this moment now. And that's why when it comes to finding ease, balance, flow, harmony in our businesses, the to-do list can actually be a really great place to start. Not only does it potentially steal time from us if it's overflowing and we're worrying about what's not getting done, but also it's a really good reflection of what's going on in our business. And you will often find that some of the things on that list were relevant to an old version of your business, and that's okay. So taking a look at our to-do list gives us an opportunity to balance that doing and that being. We can get really practical. We can focus on what perhaps was something that was relevant to an old version of our business that actually no longer needs to be on the to-do list at all. Those things that we really shouldn't or don't want to be doing and could be either outsourced or delegated. And typically those kind of things will be things that are either very time consuming, but perhaps we do enjoy doing them, but actually our time could be better spent elsewhere, or that just bring us no joy whatsoever. If it brings you no joy, whether you are a business owner or not, question, do I really need to be doing this? Or could somebody else be doing it for me? And if they could, who might that person be? And how would I go about obtaining their help and services? We do it really easily in two ways that I can think of, both personally and in our businesses. One, legal stuff, and two, accounts. Everything else we tend to think we have to do ourselves. And I know my audience is predominantly female, so talking to that female audience, we as women are really bad at, I don't know whether delegating is the right word, but asking for help. We tend to think that we have to shoulder it all, and I am no exception here. Particularly in my home life, I buy into that still, until I stop myself and think, actually, do I need to be carrying the weight of this all on my own shoulders, or could I be asking for help? Another thing you might find when you are working through that to-do list is that there are things that you are better to do than anybody else, but they don't need doing right now. And I recommend evolving your to-do list to have, in fact, this is the planner that I use called my PA planner. This planner, one of the reasons that I chose it this year is because it enables me to run my to-do list in a way I know that works for me. And that is 3 tasks each day, which are the priority for that day, and then a longer to-do list down the left-hand side of other things that need incorporating in the week or the month, say, if monthly working works for you, but are not the priority today. Prioritizing is a really incredible way to make that to-do list feel less overwhelming. I have created a couple of page PDF which enables you to take time to get focused and to do just that. I'll send it to you when you sign up to receive my newsletter. And of course, you can unsubscribe to that whenever you want to. And it is just a really valuable way of pausing amidst any overwhelm you might be feeling, and actually getting really practical about that to-do list and letting that masculine energy really take the fore. And when you've done that, when you've identified how you might be able to prioritize it, where you might be able to knock things off completely, and where you could delegate or outsource, then you get to bring in that being feminine energy. You get to get intuitive. You get to you, as in you get to actually take a step back, take a breath, and identify and think about and make space for how you want to operate, how you want to feel in the context of your business. And there are so many ways that we can do this. And the key thing is that because we have been conditioned to operate in a work or business capacity in our place of doing, our masculine energy, the best way to start incorporating the feminine and the being and the letting your intuition guide you is slowly, small steps. Because if I give you all of it in one go, it will feel big. It will feel like a lot. So I want to share with you today a few ways that you can start to incorporate that into your working and daily life in a way that works for you. So you may find that some of the things I'm about to say really resonate with you and you take them on board and you can see the benefit. And you may find that others don't, and that's okay, because we are all different. Our businesses are all different. And my ethos and what I share is to actually find what works for you. That is at the root of the being inside your business. And I'm going to start with something that if you were in my Facebook group, the Anti-Burnout Hub for Female Entrepreneurs, or you have listened to my podcast previously, you would have heard me talk about, and that is practicing the pause. Our bodies actually tell us a lot. They are sending us cues all the time. It's just that we haven't been taught to listen to them. So for me, often I can feel tingling in my shoulders that's telling me I'm feeling anxious or stressed. I can feel that my shoulders are up by my ears. And actually, I can feel today just that. I wasn't aware of it at the time, but I can now feel that I've been carrying some stress up here, so in my shoulders. When we get into the habit of noticing, we give ourselves an opportunity to get curious. And that curiosity can be as simple as pausing to take 3 breaths. And I'm going to do that with you now. And what that does is tells your nervous system that it's safe. And then ask yourself a question. And the question for me would normally be, what do I need right now? Or what is the best use of my time right now? And going and doing that thing, or staying and doing that thing. So sometimes it could be, give yourself 5 minutes to finish this task. That's one that comes up for me quite often. Or it could be, you need to get up and walk away. You need to go and get some fresh air. You need to take 5 minutes to go and make a cup of tea. And the being comes in giving yourself permission to do that without guilt. Because when we have been so used to operating in our masculine doing, it's really easy to feel guilt about stopping doing and prioritizing our own needs. But I have said this once, and I will continue to say it until everybody that needs to hear it has heard it. When we show up for ourselves throughout the working day, we actually not only nurture ourselves, but we are able to show up for our clients, our customers, our employer, if you're still employed, and those that we love and care about more. Because we are showing ourselves throughout that working day that we are worthy, that we are more than enough, that we are magical, that we deserve to be taken care of by us. And when we take care of ourselves, that spreads outwards from us into everything else we do, everything else we touch, and the people that we come into contact with. And that's why it's so important, because going, doing, and taking ourselves to burnout is the exact opposite of that. When we are lost, when we are exhausted, we have not got the energy reserves to be there for the people that we are here to share our message with, for the people that we love. Actually, also, we haven't got the energy to be there for ourselves. We haven't got the energy to be there for ourselves. That is why we haven't got the energy for everything else. And this is why giving ourselves permission and getting curious at this point, when it is the overwhelm of our to-do list, is so important, because it can stop us ever getting to that phase of burnout. And that is what I am so passionate about: empowering you, empowering the women I work with one-to-one to avoid ever getting to burnout. Because I know it's possible. I know that if you have been there before and you've come back from it and you can feel the signs in your mind and body telling you you're going back, I know that you can stop yourself getting there again. Because last summer, in the height of lockdown 1, I felt it happening when I was homeschooling, and not last summer, summer 2020, when I was homeschooling and growing my then VA business. I felt that my body and mind were starting to fall apart, for want of a better way of describing it. And I took steps, the steps that I knew from previous experience would work, to avoid myself going there again, because I didn't want to go there again. I didn't want to take my business there, and I didn't want to take my family there. And what the pause also teaches us is that sometimes we have to put things on hold before we can move forward. Sometimes the best way to give yourself that gift of time, the best way to find freedom in your business, is to use a bit more of your time in a valuable, nourishing, and productive way. So whether that be by downloading my planner, which enables you to identify how you can rethink, reorganize, rejig, release the pressure from your to-do list, whether it be by working with me one-to-one in an hour or over 3 months. Hitting that pause button for the time that you are doing that activity will, in the long run, release more time for you than the time that the being in business family of services and products is asking of you. And something that I have been reminded of a lot this January is that you aren't going to change how you feel by continuing to do the same thing. If you keep doing in the way that you've been doing up until hearing this episode or becoming part of the wider being in business family and feeling exhausted by it, continuing to do in that way is not going to suddenly make you not feel exhausted. Making a change, even though it will feel uncomfortable, even though your mind, your brain will be shouting at you because you are asking it to let you do something which is uncomfortable and therefore it sees as a threat, even though you will inevitably want to give up at some point, asking your mind and body to come with you as you make those changes is what's going to release you from that exhaustion and from going anywhere near burnout. And that's what I really, really want to help you with. That's why I've decided to take the podcast onto YouTube as well, because I know that for some people, video is a more valuable way of connecting and of learning than audio. That's why I have created the Being Burnout Free Telegram group, which is my new community, which is taking over from my Facebook group, which I mentioned earlier in this episode. And that's why my vision and my pledge for this year is to bring being in business to as many women who need to hear this message as I can, and is to empower as many of us as possible to connect with our own light and to show up for ourselves and as ourselves as possible, whether actually we're business owners or not, because it goes much wider than this. But what's at the heart of the Being in Business brand is that we cannot divorce our true selves from that person that shows up in business. We don't walk through the door as much as we might like to think we can of our working life, and that other person falls away. She is as important when we're sat at our desks as she is when we are sat on the sofa, going for a walk, going for a run, walking the dog, playing with the children. And she is magic, and she deserves to be nurtured throughout our working days. And we can do that by taking small steps, as I mentioned earlier. Small steps, changing small things, committing to drinking 8 glasses of water a day, committing to taking care of ourselves, to listening to our intuition throughout the working day. And so really, whether it's my free content or whether it's working with me one-to-one, everything that I offer comes from the place of giving you the opportunity to pause. Because when we pause, we give ourselves the opportunity to reassess and reevaluate, thus creating space for something new to enter our lives, for change. It's when we pause that we create space for seeing things differently, for letting go of that which doesn't serve us and welcoming in ways of doing and being that resonate with us and that work for us. And if your to-do list contains lots of things that are on there because you think you should be doing them or have to do them in order to create success, remember that your success doesn't have to look like anybody else's success, and that the things that other people did to achieve success worked for them, and you are not them. So giving yourself permission to do it your way without feeling guilty is really step 1 on that path to freedom. Getting really honest about what does and doesn't need to be on our to-do list and how we can re-evaluate and prioritize is the way in to giving ourselves the opportunity to break free of that old way of doing, that, if you're resonating with this, has been holding you back, and welcoming in something new. That's why I've created this PDF download, which will help you to get really clear on the practical side of that to-do list, and it's accompanied by a visualization, which will help you to settle in to the being side, the listening to your intuition, the taking notice of what is and isn't working, and giving yourself permission to not feel guilty about changing things up. On that note, I'm going to wish you goodbye. Thank you to those watching on YouTube for joining me for this very first episode. I really, really appreciate you listening or watching, whichever works for you. And I will be back next Thursday with another episode. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.